Good afternoon, everyone. Hello, good afternoon, one more time. Are you tired? How is it going for you so far? You like it? Well, you're going to like it even more. We have a great panel here, but before that, we have some awards, some certificates to deliver. And actually, we have, I'm going to ask the first group, and the commitment is about Nyota za Shanga, and they're going to come and explain to you what the commitment is and what the intervention is. So let me ask Ashna Singh and Lucky Yona Jr. to come and join me. Ashna is from Northeastern University, and Lucky is from Yale. So come here, close to me. I'm a nice guy. Come. And so let's put you here. You know how do you know each other?
We went to school for 10 years.
Okay.
We went to school for 10 years together and lived in the same town.
Same thing. It's not on. It's not on. So we're testing here. Now, so you went to school for 10 years, and you're from the same town. So Northeastern, what are you studying in Northeastern?
Neuroscience.
Neuroscience. And what are you studying?
Economics and psychology.
Okay. So now, what is the commitment? And it's up to you too. And what is your intervention?
So first off, to start, our project is in Arusha, Tanzania, which is our hometown back in Eastern Africa. So people with disabilities, including physical and mental disabilities, face a significant amount of discrimination with respect to gaining access to healthcare, employment, and poverty is a huge issue with respect to laws, and there's a lot of discrimination. So what we do is we made a commitment to expand the work of Shanga, which is a fantastic social enterprise that was founded in 2007 that aims to provide a source of employment for members of the disabled community. The work that's conducted at Shanga is made entirely through recycled materials, including recycled glass, plastic, and metal, and everything that is generated as a result of the income through the products that are made are used to empower the local community, and the proceeds go back to hospital equipment and as well as just providing things like prosthetics for the disabled community.
That's wonderful. And Lucky, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, so Shanga is we're expanding Shanga's efforts from the current social enterprise they are, but including and basic education in English and IT, along with career counseling, formal vocational certification provided by a partnering institution, and a career network of local engaged executives. That way, once these people leave as craftsmen, they actually have a place to go as they can transition into more administrative positions.
That's wonderful. So congratulations. I'm going to give you the certificate, and we're going to have a photo op here. Let's give them a big round of applause. Let me do it here. A big smile. Okay. We have one. So shall I cut it in half? No, thank you. Thank you very much. So you can go back to your seats. Thank you. And don't take my card. And here, give us the microphones. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. So the second commitment is Shop Jaxt, and Joycelle Cunningham from Harvard is going to come and explain what the commitment is. Yes, give her a round of applause. That's okay. So what do you study at Harvard?
So I study education.
Education.
Yes.
And at the graduate or undergraduate?
Graduate level.
At the graduate level.
Yes.
And what do you want to do when you finish?
I want to save the world like the rest of the people in the room.
That's good.
Yes.
Great. So let's tell us about your commitment.
Okay. So how's everyone doing? Good afternoon. My name is Joycelle Cunningham, and I'm working on Shop Jaxt. And while the youth unemployment rate in the U.S. is down from its recent peak in 2010, an estimated 3 million people aged 16 to 24 are completely disconnected, neither in school nor working. And with the increasing demand for a post-secondary degree or certificate in the workplace, many young people struggle to get ahead. The skills gap is particularly prevalent in the fashion industry as it struggles to find people with both creative and business talent.
Yes, it is.
My commitment, ShopJaxed, is a fashion online retailer committed to creating education and workforce development opportunities for youth in need. Workforce readiness programs will focus on design, marketing, and the selling of fashion merchandise across the United States. ShopJaxed is a hybrid for-profit and non-for-profit organization that provides free training in workplace culture, marketing, social media, technology, product design, and career exploration. Our initial work will focus on establishing curricula and recruiting 18 to 24-year-olds from underserved communities, and proceeds from the sale of merchandise will be used to sustain and grow the company while supporting a fellowship for underserved youth who are interested in design careers. So if you'd like to follow us, you can visit shopjax.com and give us your information so we can keep in touch and keep you updated along the way. Thank you so much.
This is wonderful. This is wonderful. So, have you started the online work or not yet?
So we've ran a series of tests and pilots around the country, and we are launching during the next iteration of New York Fashion.
I have news for you. There is a gentleman on this panel who can be of great help to you.
I'm excited to hear him speak.
If I were you, before he leaves, grab him and pick his brain.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, here. And give you the other one too. So we're waiting for you guys in the back. Are you going? We have been told that you're going to, yes. Go ahead.
They're waiting for nothing.
I
I think the three of us is what they're waiting for.
Okay, please. They told us that they're going to give your names, so. Here, Duane.
Yes.
Free seating.
Thank you, sir.
And the drinks are all the same. Okay, thank you. You will see that we have a great panel. And rather than, also you know about them, you read about them, you heard of them, rather than asking them to introduce themselves in a very traditional way or for me to introduce them, what I asked each one to do is to talk about the journey, his journey. We are missing one person, Martha Cantor, who's a colleague and a friend. She was the Undersecretary of Education, of Higher Education. She couldn't make it at the last moment. And so that's why you don't see any female panelists here with us. She was supposed to be here with us. But anyway, so I'm going to ask each panelist to talk a little bit about his journey and what led him to doing or writing or thinking about what they have been doing. You'll see it's fascinating. So Duane, why don't you start?
Sure. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me.
It's great
it's first time to Northeastern. It's a beautiful place. Unbelievable building, too, by the way.
Okay.
So my journey started, as she just mentioned. I grew up in Inglewood, California. Not the safest place in America, especially when I grew up. But my journey started at the age of 19, and it started with a suggestion box. And I was gifted with the ability to draw anything I could see. And I would put sketches in the suggestion box. I worked at a company, and they were looking for ways to make the company better. And my suggestion was to hire me as a footwear designer. And so they did at the age of 19. And from that moment, this was in late 80s, so 1989. I'm a little older than some of you in the room. But from that one moment, that propelled me to move to the state of Oregon, where I had the opportunity to work with some of the greatest athletes on the planet. Still the best athlete ever to play basketball, by the way. The LeBron guy is all right, but MJ is the one. But while I was there, I noticed a void. Some things happened. When I was starting, there was no Google, there was no internet. So people couldn't find out who I was or what my passion was. And once I got to Jordan, the ability for kids to submit ideas and show what they could do for the opportunity to figure out what should they do to get into this industry, it became an issue because there was no pathway. If you remember, I started working at 19. I learned everything on the job itself. And there was no schools. There were no schools for footwear. There was no schools for design, specifically in the footwear area, the business of design or apparel. And so I created the opportunity that did not exist for a $60 billion industry that's just in the United States only. And we started Pensole in 2010. And now we work with all of the top footwear companies globally, as well as some of the top design schools globally, and we place students. We are the connection point for education for the entire athletic and outdoor footwear industry.
What's your shoe size?
So now where I grew up, you didn't ask that.
Yeah.
because
yeah.
that meant somebody would have to take your
Yes,
shoes,
but
okay?
That's my
So my
intention.
answer is my size. That's
My
the
size.
answer, yes.
Okay, so that's
This
designed.
is a 12, though, yes.
That's a design by pencil.
Yes, one of our former students did this.
Okay, so you see what I was referring to?
Yep.
Pick his brain. Absolutely. Andrew.
Hi all, my name's Andy McAfee. I hang out across the river at MIT, and I study technology because I think technology is awesome. But the problem is, as I was studying what I thought of was the awesomeness of technology, was that it didn't appear to be helping everybody out equally. And in particular, a lot of us are hearing about the stalled out middle class in America and about people having difficulty finding jobs, and it's the reason for this panel. And my brain kind of hurt trying to reconcile the fact that technology was awesome and taking us to these amazing places, and we got drone deliveries and flying cars, and this should be the best of all possible worlds. And it looked like a lot of people weren't feeling that they were part of that best of all possible worlds for some pretty good reasons. So that led to my co-author, Eric Brynjolfsson, and I writing a couple books about this puzzle, this amazing time that we're living in, and why it doesn't feel like all the fruits, all the benefits of technology are being distributed in a fair way or being distributed in a way that's making everybody feel like they're part of the process.
Great.
Nice.
So we're going to come back to that. Andrew and his co-author have been writing about as he said, the fact that technology is changing the future of work. And there are various studies indicating that in the next 20 years, 50% of the jobs we know in the Western world will disappear, including media automation, media, medicine, accounting, law, etc., will be transformed. Some will disappear completely. And the World Bank just had a study showing that in the emerging world, in the emerging economies, 70% of these jobs will disappear. I want you to keep that in mind because the three panelists are going to provide a window into an alternative way of thinking about the future of work. Gerald.
Great. Thanks, President. Appreciate it. So
He called me Joseph before. Now I became president. So what do you want?
so many of you people ask you, who's your greatest teacher? My greatest teacher was a 10-year-old boy from the Dominican Republic, who I happened to meet 30 plus years ago through the Big Brothers program. And he's now a member of our family, but I spent many years of my life every Saturday in a housing project, which at that point in New York City was the most heavily photographed crime scene in New York City. So I spent every Saturday there. I got to know a lot of the young boys and young men in that housing project, and saw after 3 years of Saturdays that here were some of the most talented, smart, motivated young people I've ever met in my life, yet had absolutely no idea how to get into the mainstream of this country. And what was clear to me, it was their zip code, the bank balance of their mom, the color of their skin, in the school system they attended, which were actually determining their potential more than their God-given ability. And so it was at that point that I I think, learned the truth of my life at a pretty young age, was we have a massive opportunity divide in this country. And if we don't actually work on solving and closing that divide, our citizenry, our democracy, our civil society, our economy, we all stand to lose. And so I set about starting a program to somehow enable low-income young adults to, in 1 year, go from poverty to a professional career that averages about $40,000 a year in the best companies across this country. And we're doing that now for about 17 years, and now closer to 20,000 young people who are gaining access to livable wage work, who have come from the most isolated pockets of poverty in the United States of America.
So it's called Year Up, and then could you talk about the 6 months and 6 months, the two?
Sure. So we work with motivated young adults who actually want to work in the tech industry or finance industry for Google or Bank of America. In 300 companies, we give them 6 months of intensive training in that what I call the ABCs: attitudinal, behavioral, and communication skills, the things employers are really most interested in at the entry level. And then we pick something marketable, whether it's cybersecurity or data analytics or Java or whatever the market tells us. And as long as that job is paying around $40,000 a year to start, we're interested in that job. So 6 months of intensive training, full-time. Our students do receive credit for that training. So we do at this point are awarding about a year's worth of college credit. And then they go into a 6-month internship with a company that for that company functions like almost a try before you buy or attempt to perm. So the company can see someone in action who never would have seen the inside of Google or JP Morgan. And so many of those companies, when they started, first told me, Gerald, we don't hire anyone who doesn't have a 4-year degree. Like that, come on, I'm Goldman Sachs. We don't hire people who don't have 4-year degrees. And at the end of that now, most of them have changed their hiring practices to accommodate hiring folks who have what I call a sub-baccalaureate credential or degree, in realizing that they were missing talent in this country that they perhaps could have had access to if they want to attract the best and brightest minds in this country. You don't want to set up artificial barriers like a 4-year degree that when you do, you exclude 86% of Latinos and 79% of African Americans in this country when you say you need a 4-year degree before you apply for a job.
So, I was explaining to the panelists that we have 250 universities represented here today from close to 90 countries. You all come from an environment that is what is called traditional environment in higher education, namely your full-time students. What we are seeing also in the world now is that the non-full-time students that are sometimes referred to as the non-traditional learners are becoming the majority. By certain counts, 85% of the learners in the United States are non-traditional. And Jared, you were right, say, why do you call them non-traditional? Because if they become the majority. So keep that in mind, because it has implications for all of us in terms of what is the structure of a college, residential or non-residential? What is the value of a 4-year degree? What is the value of a degree? Now, if jobs are going to be or to disappear, redefined, and new jobs are going to be created, the question that we need to ask ourselves is, what is the talent that the world needs? And the first thing when we look at talent, when we survey people, when we survey employers, they are not interested in people having skills only. Because machines will outskill us. They want people who can go and integrate with the skills the ability to be entrepreneurial, the ability to be creative, the ability to be culturally agile, the ability to work with people coming from different horizons. Let's keep that in mind. So essentially, we are in a situation where every learner now, and will have to have 3 types of literacies. What I call a tech literacy, the ability to understand machines, coding, etc. the ability to, the second literacy is an information literacy, which is the ability to understand the products of these smart machines and what they do and how we navigate that. And the third, that is more important, is the human literacy. What is it that we do that machines cannot duplicate? This beautiful design is an example. The creativity that you are getting you. So we need the three literacies. And ask yourselves, are we in higher education giving you the three literacies and integrating them, not putting them in silos? The tech literacy, the information literacy, and the human literacy. What can we do that machines cannot do? So we'll come back to that, but you see already that this Andrew has been writing very influential books about how the nature of work is changing and the implications for society. But the three panelists are concerned with inequality, because inequality is going to increase dramatically. And each one of them is either raising an alarm and saying, hey guys, inequality is going to increase, or saying, hey guys, the inequalities are going to increase, and I'm going to provide an answer, a solution. How scalable is your model, Duane?
Well, it's the industry of athletic apparel and footwear is about 300 billion globally. So I think there's some room.
So do you have design, because now you told me you're in Portland,
I'm in
and
Portland.
you are thinking about going elsewhere. What will be the next stop for you?
Massachusetts.
Great. Why Massachusetts?
It's the second largest industry in the United States for my business. First is Oregon. The second one is Massachusetts. Alone, just in this state, you have about $20 billion worth of revenue generated by companies in my industry.
And are you thinking of, because you told me you have students coming from various countries,
Yes,
correct?
all
How many
over the world.
countries?
Over 45 different countries.
And how many, are you planning to have overseas operations?
I currently teach right now in Denmark.
You teach in Denmark?
Yep.
And that's yourself?
That's myself, and I have a staff as well as go over
How
there.
large is your operation?
When you say as far as employees,
Portland.
we have 11 staff.
You're the founder.
I am the founder.
But I want to raise an issue about founders. Founders are charismatic. Founders make things happen.
Yeah.
But
You got
it
no
is
choice.
often the case that after a founder, the place doesn't collapses. Why? Because they are larger than life, and they didn't build succession planning. You're young, slightly younger than I am.
7 years young, yes.
Yeah, I'm 48, so that's fine. No, don't believe that. Do you have, if suppose, God forbid, that you're hit by a truck tomorrow morning, a self-driving truck,
Yes.
what would you do? What your operation do?
So the way that we've structured the academy is that our students who go on to get jobs, they come back and teach.
I see.
So they not only go out and get the jobs, but they come back and teach the kids that were in the same seats that they
Do you
sat
see
in.
a Duane that is ready to take over?
I see multiple versions
Great.
of me ready to take over.
Great.
Yes.
That's wonderful. So you are preparing for that.
Oh, yeah.
What about you, Jeff?
So we've got about 800 staff.
Yeah.
In
And you are in multiple cities now.
22 locations around the country. It's about a $140 million organization. And so like we're run as a business would be run and pretty properly structured. So we have many emergency and planned succession. So it's all been mapped out and planned pretty well. And then my job is to, over time, continue to have folks who can rise up to replace the types of roles I do. I do some certain things well and other things a lot less well. So trying to understand what has to happen. So we've tried to tackle that pretty thoughtfully. We're the largest and fastest growing youth serving organization started in this century in the United States. And it's still very small, I would argue. You talk about scalability is a great question. So yes, we are now disrupting ourselves to try to get to a much higher scale. We can get to 8,000, 10,000 a year. That's almost irrelevant given the scale of the challenge in this country. But we have to recognize, and I think when you think about problem solving in things you care about, programs won't solve the country's problems. We could go to 100x, it's not going to be relevant. The fact is we have to look at what's called systems entrepreneurship as well as just social entrepreneurship. So how do we think about systems in systemic change? The system is too large for us to work around. We're not going to be able to do that. So we have to be as thoughtful about articulating, look, we are a hack to a broken labor market in the United States of America. We exist because of systemic dysfunction in the employment to education pipeline in the United States of America. We shouldn't exist. Our job is to say systemically, politically, how do you get companies involved in a much more thoughtful way? How do you have a world that doesn't need a year up to help a young person actually become gainfully employed in this country? I think that probably we spend a great deal of time, effort, and money around systemic change at a much broader level.
So give me an example of a systemic change that you're attempting to make a reality.
So we launched 3 years ago an ad council campaign, which are national public campaigns for causes. We did it under a separate brand called Grads of Life. We've got about $80 million of advertising that's gone into that. And we wanted to see whether we could get employers to see opportunity youth, 18 to 24-year-olds that you had articulated, Joycel, who are out of school, out of work. Could we get employers to see those young adults as economic assets and not social liabilities? Is that even possible to do? We had a posit. We went to the ad council, we sold an idea, $80 million of advertising later. You can conclusively now say employers will look at this group as assets. 1 million people came to the website we established. Tens of thousands of businesses downloaded tools on how to work with this population. And many hundreds of big companies called us and said, we want to do this. So we proved the first point, that corporate America will look differently at human capital. Now the question is, how does the supply side meet the demand side?
Okay.
So that would be a systemic change. We didn't do it under the Year Up brand because we didn't want to confuse the market. But we've done that 4 years. They're doing another $50 million worth of advertising.
Andrew, you're listening to that, and given your research and your work, and you look at what they have been doing, each one of them, is it a Band-Aid or is it a new paradigm?
Well, I completely agree with you. It's a hack right now. It's absolutely a Band-Aid on a bad situation. And we absolutely do need to bring systemic change and think about how to make bigger things change more quickly. The task is even more urgent because the world of technology is changing with unprecedented speed, just crazy speed, to the point that isn't it always more fun on panels when the panelists actually disagree with each other?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get
All right,
at.
stay tuned. Here we go. You said two things and said them with some confidence and conviction, and I think they're both wrong.
That's good.
Yep.
So your time is over. That's it. Let's move to the next one. Go ahead, Andrew.
Bravo.
Go ahead.
The first thing you said that I disagree with is that those shoes need to be designed by a human being. That was true up until very, very recently. Here's what is no longer any kind of science fiction. Here's a pretty straightforward project to do right now. Show designs of really cool, really popular sneakers to a machine learning system. It will understand the elements of a popular sneaker design and spit out a bunch of them. Now, some of them will stink. And then you have a human being going, no, you're wrong. That's ugly, 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 cool, ugly, cool, ugly. They'll hire a mini Duane to do that kind of work. And before too long, that system will be really good at turning out sneakers that are perceived as cool, hip, whatever. You might still need a human designer to tweak or to refine that a little bit, but the notion that a creative task like designing those super cool shoes has to be a human task. We don't have machines to do that. I'm telling you, that's wrong these days.
Okay.
And it's going to get more wrong over time.
You said the
I'm not done
second
yet.
one.
There's a
The
second
second
one.
one. I'm moving to the second, moving you.
No, you're
Moving you to the second.
the second
And
thing
then we
is,
partially disagree about that.
that's
but we
awesome.
can
So
get
good.
there.
More,
Okay.
more is better, right?
Yes.
The second thing that you said, which I can categorically disagree with, is that everyone on
The first one was not categorical? Oh my God.
that was mild disagreement. There's still
Okay.
a person involved in this scenario that I
Yes.
just
Look, I
outlined.
was planning to offer you a real nice shoe. Forget it. Yes.
The second thing, which I categorically disagree with, is when you said that everybody on this stage is concerned about inequality. I am not concerned about inequality. I am concerned about stagnation. Those are two very different phenomena. And the way I think about that is, do we want an economy that has more or fewer Steve Jobs in it? How many of us are on the more side? Seriously.
Yeah, more.
All right, Steve Jobs is a massive inequality increaser. You got billionaires like that. Every way we have to measure inequality, he increases inequality. Bring on the Steve Jobs. The thing that I'm deeply worried about is that there are large numbers of people and growing numbers of people who either are stuck economically or feel stuck economically. They feel the deal has been changed on them. They feel keenly resentful with some pretty good reasons. And the most frightening thing to me is people used to feel, if you surveyed them, that their future was going to get better and their kids' future was going to be better than theirs.
So what's the upshot?
The percentage of people who feel that way is going down pretty quickly. And that's actually what I'm worried about.
Okay, so let me tell you, usually when two panelists disagree and you think, my God, what's going to happen next? So the way to do it is to look around and ask yourselves, are they really disagreeing? And I'm not disagreeing at all with you. So how can I reconcile what you said with what I said? The second point is when you said I disagree about inequality is going to increase. That's what I said. And therefore, the question that the challenge and the opportunity that we have is how to make people what I call robot-proof. And provide them with the opportunity to be the next Steve Jobs, etc. So your body language saying yes, so now we have an agreement. With respect to the design,
I tried.
Yeah. With respect,
But there's some people don't even know who Steve Jobs is.
Yeah.
Jobs is though.
Yes, but now I'm going to give you something for you, Duane, because I bought myself a pair of shoes that were designed by a machine. So I knew exactly that. And you're absolutely right. And machines are going to get better and better, so they are going to displace more and more jobs. So I have news for you folks. When we went to college, people told us you're set for life because you have a BA or a BS or a master's or a PhD. It's over. Lifelong learning is with us. Why? Because machines are getting smarter. And I have to tell you, universities are always considered lifelong learning as a second-class operation, that we do it on the side, we make money out of it, but we don't want to integrate it. The consequence is that now companies are starting universities. They're not in the university business, but they have to do it because of the gap. So keep in mind that you are going to be the lifelong learners. We all have to be the lifelong learners. And ask yourselves, who is going to serve you? But let's get to the design. I agree with you on the fact that machines are going to design things. They learn. Machine learning is here. But then when he started doing that, I saw your body language. You were not in agreement with him. So tell us how you disagree.
Well, I think machines right now are being utilized to make them, not design them. There's a difference.
I fully appreciate that.
So they are there to make things more efficient because of human capital and human power of reducing the cost and increasing the speed. But design-wise, there's an emotional attachment that comes from creativity that a machine can't quite grasp just yet. Yes, Watson won Jeopardy a couple times, whatever, but that doesn't really count from creativity and the emotional connection that has to happen from one human to another human. At some point, maybe something will happen, but right now, the machines are making the product faster. So yes, they are creating or taking jobs.
So let me read you something, a paraphrase of what Andrew said. He said, computers have become very good at generative design and music composition, but they lack the intuition of the native speaker in understanding the human condition. Do you agree with your quotation? Yeah. So
I have a bad choice here. I can either agree with him, which you know I don't like to do, or disagree with myself, which is even more uncomfortable. So yes, that's an accurate.
You see now,
that's an accurate.
You see how we turned it around.
I know. That is some good panel jujitsu right there.
So that's good.
That was good.
That's good. I made, I prepared. I had my, homework. Homework is essential, guys. Okay. So, look. What we have done, let's bring it together. The two endeavors, Pencil and Year Up, are doing something very interesting. And it's called what we call here at Northeastern experiential education. Namely, they are bringing together and integrating the learning in the classroom and the learning in the real world. And that's something that is essential because we believe the only way to understand our competence, what we know, what we don't know, what we're good at, what we're not good at, how we interact with people, how to be in a and behave in an environment that's completely alien to us is through experiential learning. And that's what they are doing. Here at Northeastern, we're doing it, as I mentioned, as some of you know, in 146 countries. It's not easy. So what you are saying today here from our panelists is, listen, guys, the world is changing. Yeah. That's Andrew. And saying, look, this is how it's going to change. This is how it's changing. Then you have people who are saying, look, I'm going to step in and launch a new paradigm. My two colleagues here. But they are saying to themselves and to us, look, ultimately, should we exist or not? That's one question. And how to scale it up. And in whatever commitments you have done and what you are doing to move it forward, you are going to face the same questions. Am I changing the world one person at a time and providing a model for others to emulate? Or am I creating a boutique operation that is impacting a segment of the population in Tanzania or in Rwanda or wherever? Those are great questions. We don't know the answers, and we may need both. We may need both. So with this in mind, what we are going to do, we are going to give you 10 minutes. Turn to your neighbors, prepare questions for us, and tough questions. Okay, don't give us easy questions. If they are easy, I'll answer them. If they are tough, they'll answer them. Okay? So we are going to circulate with you and be around you. Turn to, you can be in pairs, in 3, 4, whatever you want. We believe in total academic freedom and democracy. Just do it. You have 10 minutes. Okay? Great. It was fun.
That was good. Yeah. I gotta go. I'm sorry.
Let me tell you something. The organizers told us that you are so smart and so quick, you don't need 10 minutes. That's the official version. The unofficial version is that we are running out of time. So what we are going to do is something different. What we are going to do is ask you to come up with 5 questions, 6 questions, and then the panelists are going to try to provide a unified answer to the 5, 6, or 10 questions. Because ultimately, we are going to realize that those questions are going to overlap. And therefore, it will be an opportunity for us to discuss them. So who has a question? Raise your hand. And wow. Yes? Yes? Speak up, because we have mics coming to you.
My question is, how do we overcome the stigma that people have towards vocational education?
Okay, great. Another question, you said, let me stop you. He said, I have a question for you, and it's angry. Okay, if it's angry, stop. No, come on. Give him the mic. He's not angry at all. He's smiling.
So we have a question that's based around, given that automation is changing the nature of work and is changing the nature of the labor force, how do you sell that reality to the American public that maybe in 100 years, there won't be jobs for everyone? What do you do with the people who may not have
That's
jobs?
A great question. So vocational, the public, yes. Guys, are you keeping track?
I got it.
Because I have a short-term memory problem.
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
Hi. So, when we reach the point where students are receiving an education based on skills and like they're doing the work, but they have the mindset that they're not going to be able to use those skills in their lives because they think it's going to stay in the classroom. How do you break that barrier that they have on the fact that education goes beyond the classroom?
That's called experiential education. In the back. In the back. Yes. Experiential. But, yes.
Suppose you worked on an education initiative in your city for a year and it works now, and you want to scale and the problem is global. How do you choose the order of magnitude when it comes to scaling?
That's a great point also. That I think that you're going to hear about the notion of platform. Andrew McAfee is writing something here. He's writing the answer already. So we have, okay, let me do the following. Two more, we'll start with answers, then we'll go back to another set. Yes? You. Yeah, you. But, both of you, that's okay.
So I wanted to ask, my name is Salman, I'm from George Mason University. So it seems as if nowadays employers are looking for more than just a bachelor's degree. And through traditional hiring practices, it's usually a paper application or an online application. How do you show employers that you have more to offer than just a 4-year degree through these traditional hiring practices?
Okay, great. Here, quickly.
My name is Shane Godek from Northeastern University. You guys talked a lot about human capital development later in life, but what changes are needed for human capital development before you enter high school and at the younger ages to really help catch up and meet the demands of the future market?
Okay, so let me tell you what we're going to do. We're going to ask two more here. We have two more questions, one from the back, one from the front, in order to keep some kind of equilibrium. So give the back, start with the back over there, to the left, to my left here, here,
left.
and then go to the back here. Okay, you choose. Quickly.
All right.
Yes.
I just wanted to piggyback on his question. Besides how to communicate the automation, what off the top of your head are solutions that you think we can actually start executing upon to help people kind of be thinking ahead of how they can build employment opportunities when computers are taking over their jobs?
Okay, one more here. Who has the mic?
Right?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so my question is for Duane. I just wanted to get your perspective on what you see the future of fashion design, where you see the future of fashion design going, especially with the implementation of artificial intelligence and just like the new trend of using data and all that for for fashion design.
Great.
Yeah.
So let me tell you, we're going to stop. Let me bring some of the questions under one umbrella, the societal umbrella. People, their reactions. Whether it's vocational, or understanding that the work is going to change, understanding this, that the skills may be obsolete, whatever it is. So that's one type of question that my colleagues are going to answer. The second type of question is about also a platform question. What are we going to, namely, if you want to scale something that is successful, what is the approach? In fact, this gentleman has been writing about that in his second book he wrote. What's the third type of question? How do you bring it together? Shall we start with that? What is
really changes to early education to kind of meet the future market?
Yes.
More on solutions.
Yeah.
Early education.
Okay. So guys, and then there is one for you, Duane.
Yep.
And that is specific to the fashion design. How many of you are interested in fashion and design? My God, we have a healthy group. Okay, so Duane, when are you going back to Oregon? Tomorrow, cancel that. We'll stay here. Okay, so let's start with the first one, the societal issues. The perception, right? What it needs to be done, etc. Who would like to talk about that?
Can I start with that, please? So, and I think I think you asked the question. So this is almost my third decade in this industry. I have yet to see a degree. I don't know what it looks like. I'm in the talent business, okay? So for me, a piece of paper is not going to validate your ability to do anything. It's going to be what you can do. That's going to be the thing that's going to validate you and get you employed. The perception thing, for me, I think is more of an academic issue of the higher ed perspective, not necessarily from a company point of view, because I think the companies will tell you that they will have a higher probability of getting the employee that they want if there was a knowledge base of that employee before they started of how that job will be performed, versus going and learning all these other things that are not quite applicable. And then you transfer it when you get into a job, and then they train you to do the job that they hired you for, right? So I'm that middle ground for the companies in my industry where I become the education opportunity for them to say, hey, Duane, we need this person. Do you have anyone available, right? Or let's do some projects and programs together, because this is the skill base I'm looking for in 1 year to 2 years to 3 years. So it's that preparation opportunity that I see that the companies are investing in more now, because as we talked about earlier today, is that there's a standstill. The companies are waiting for the education sector to actually provide quality product to deliver to them, and the education side is waiting for the money from the companies to educate them properly, so no one's budging, right? And so for me, being in that environment for the last 28 years, I saw that no one was budging, and I'm like, okay, this has to change, because they both need it, right? When I say both, meaning you as the aspiring employee, and then the company needs it. So the way we're structured is the company pays for your education, because they're the beneficiary. When you come to our school, it's free.
Yeah. So you see, the panel is about skills versus degrees. So you are seeing that, in fact, when it comes to skills, the notion, the degree is not the attainment, is not the, ultimately what we should thrive for. And in fact, if you start looking at the notion of degree, is being fragmented. You are going to hear about certificates, stackable certificates. You are going to hear about badges. But also you're going to hear more and more about competence base. Namely, people are at a stage where they are saying, look, what is important for me in my life is to acquire this competence. And somebody was asking a question about, if things are going to change, how am I going to go back to school? And my answer there, you don't need to go back to school. The school has to go to you. Yeah. And that's important, because we have to create a multi-university system where we are going to you. We are going to be with you. And, is it done? Yes. It's being done. So if you have lifelong learning, what you have to do is think constantly about how you are upskilling and re-educating yourselves. Let's go to the second panelist. Who would like to take that?
Sure. And just to ask to address which part of that three?
Whatever you want.
Sure. So a couple things. The companies use degrees now because it's a proxy or something they hope you have, right, which are skills and competencies. It's a very blunt and poor way to signal that you have something. It is not going to take too long before companies can look straight through a degree and assess your problem-solving, critical thinking, emotional intelligence, ability to offer customer service in an authentic way. We still live in a country that actually has a cultural bias towards that degree. You talked about vocational education. Go to Switzerland or Germany, it's a different view of how to, the skilled trades and different paths people can go down. There's still a bias here. I think one of the things we need, we have a cartel in this industry, in this country. It's called higher education. That cartel.
That's not a joke. That's not an exaggeration. That is a statement of fact.
Very true.
3,200 organizations have a cartel on getting Title IV funding, which actually, unfortunately, limits your innovation, your ability to change quickly, the ability to meet market demand. If the government could do one thing and one thing only, it would be to release the cartel with sensible regulation, I get it, to allow many more folks to meet the needs of learners, to meet the needs of industry, to break open that 3,200 organization cartel would do more to help this problem than probably anything else the government could do, period. they're pretty good at holding the cartel tight.
So let me mention something here. Whether you call them cartel or not,
because nobody likes being accused of being part of a cartel.
Right. No, absolutely. Absolutely.
Right.
Look, I was going to agree with you. Now forget it. But let me mention something. What you are witnessing, these reactions, is the fact that higher education has built its model in the United States on an exclusion.
Right.
Namely, we receive here at Northeastern 54,000 applications for 2,700 seats. And then we reject most of them, and we brag about it. But in fact, if you think about it, you know, when you have a demand, you have to satisfy this demand. And therefore, that's the first aspect that you keep in mind. And that's what he was referring to. I don't think it's a cartel for a simple reason. A cartel works in unison. Put 5 university presidents, they'll have 10 divergent ideas. They don't work together. They don't work together. I mean, and that in some ways is very good because higher education is very diverse. But I want to turn to Andrew. Andrew, I want you to address the question that this gentleman in the back talked about, raised, namely how you scale something that is. And in your second book, you addressed this issue very early on, very quick, very directly. So could you talk about that?
Yeah.
I'm trying to be nice to you here.
Turn the other cheek, right? A theme I heard in almost all the questions from you all was how do we make big changes happen? And I think that's exactly the right question for an audience like this to be focused on. So I was just trying to jot down my list of ways to make big changes happen. One is technology, because in the world that we live in today, you can have a brilliant piece of technology that scales globally in the blink of an eye. 2/7 of the world's population has a Facebook account. The company is 10 years old. We have never seen anything like that before. So technology and digital platforms will help you scale, will help you make big changes quite quickly. So will markets, and turning your back on market forces is a really, really bad idea. However, when those market forces get too strong, they turn into incumbents and they turn into cartels. So a really important piece of homework for all of us is fight the incumbents. If you have a choice, over and over again, I see that when we have policy choices or regulation choices, it's basically a choice between protecting tomorrow from today or protecting today from tomorrow. I want everybody in this room to be part of the forces protecting tomorrow from today. Incumbents and regulators and lots of folk get together and they try to hold on to today like crazy. Fight that with all of your power. And then a final way to make big things happen, and I think what you did with the Ad Council is brilliant in this regard, change the conversation. And there are a bunch of different ways to do that. Use the power of advertising, which sways us like crazy. You do the right thing instead of the wrong thing. In my world of higher academia, we're part of this really unproductive conversation supported by both political parties in America that says, everybody, your goal should be to go to a 4-year college and get a liberal arts degree because that's where good citizens come from. That's nonsense. It's just absolutely wrong. But that conversation is dominant out there, and it's changing, but we need to accelerate that change. Someone said, how do we sell the reality? Wow, that's a tough one, and it's part of this communication question. The challenge is that reality is always a tougher sell than fantasy. And the voices of fantasy are dominant these days, and they are winning the communications battle in realm after realm. So we have the uphill. Those of us in the reality-based community have a very serious uphill battle. And I think the way to do that is to harness the power of very clever advertising and very clever messaging, and to amplify the faint signal, not the fake signals out there, but the faint signals out there. Because there's all kinds of encouraging stuff going on. You're doing encouraging stuff. Northeastern's doing encouraging. You're doing, talk about those. Start to sway this monolithic understanding that we have in a more accurate and a more persuasive direction. None of this is easy.
So let me tell you, now we are going to take a second round of questions because we didn't fully answer everything because the panelists will stay here and you can grab us and grab them and ask questions. So quickly now, let's go around. I need 2 mics, one on this side, one on this side. Come closer and here. And one to this side and one to this side. Yes. So here, behind you, the lady. And this gentleman here. So go ahead, ask your question.
Hi everyone, I am Nazanin, and I'm studying biology at York University in Toronto. Since our discussion is about degree and skills, it is kind of related to my own life history.
But we want this question to be short.
Sure. It is short. I studied 4 years of medicine in Afghanistan. I migrated to Canada, and when I came in here, what I got the answer was, unfortunately, we cannot accept you. There is no transfer. So you have to reapply for undergraduate studies. You have to do 4 more years of another degree so that we give you another chance. I am in my last year of doing another degree for 4 years.
Good. So what's the question?
Still, the question comes, still, I have to struggle 1 more year to write MCAT or to enter to any university. And the question for me now rises, what matters in here, skills or degree? I have experience of working.
That's a good question. We got the question, and and that's an important one. So let's go to this one.
Okay. All right, so I'm Devin. I am a doctoral student, and part of my question is, how many of you went to college? Because we're all in college, and what I've heard is a huge critique of the higher education system, which makes me think a lot of the narrative of students who I work with is about, hey, I want to go to college. And so my second question after how many of you went to college is, what does higher education as an institution do right? And what can we as entrepreneurs in higher education institutions do to move our systems of education, our institutions of education, closer to what our nations need?
Great question. Okay, I need 2 more. The gentleman behind, over there, here, and then on this side. This gentleman on this side, and then we'll move to the right. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. I am curious about how the technological implication in this world is changing the way we perceive this elitism. You said that when you're our age, if you have a BA, BS, PhD, you're all set. Something tells me that you will still be all right if you graduate from Ivy League schools, top class. And if it's really if it's about the quality of education or the contents, and the walls are being broken down because of the rise of MOOC, shouldn't it make sense that the value of those elitism will, decrease?
Okay, that's a great question. Here we have, who has this one? Could you come here to this side now for the other questions so that we are fair over there and here? Yes, go ahead.
Hey, so we kind of discussed the value of the 4-year education and the future of that education. So do you see that 4-year education as fading out in the future, or is that still necessary for like your higher end like CEO jobs?
Okay, so where is the question over there? You have the question.
Yeah, my name is Ilya from George Washington University. My question is, if you have 2 application for students just graduate from school, what do you look more for? Is it the name of the school, the skills they have, the certifications for computers and stuff like this? What's more important for you?
Yeah, that's actually, it comes together, the notion, it intersects with your question. A question here.
Yeah, hi, I'm Emily. I'm Peruvian based in Minnesota. I'm working with sustainable fashion. And my question is, how can I scale up without going to fast fashion?
How can what?
Scale up without falling into fast fashion.
Okay, so look, what are we going to do? I see more hands. So let's do the following. Why don't you start answering some questions about higher education? And all these questions that we had about higher education are intersecting along the following lines. If you are criticizing higher education, you are all in higher education. I am in higher education. He is in higher education. They are in education. Therefore, the question is, what is the value of higher education? Let's put it this way, in a blunt way. And let's ask ourselves, what is it, including the criticism that was raised. Is the criticism going to nullify the value, or is it going to try to nullify some of the noise and focus on the value? So, Andrew, you live in higher education. You get a paycheck from higher education. So
we should still feel free to bite the hand that feeds us, right?
Yeah.
The value of higher ed is twofold. You get skills, and you get certification. You get a degree from a university. Both of those things are valuable. Yep. I want the value of the certification to go to zero. I want the world to not care about that piece of paper. I want them to care about your skills. That's going to be bad news for some of us, quite frankly. But there's a wonderful quote that I try to live by from a science fiction writer named William Gibson, who says, "The future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed." Mm. And when I go try to understand where the future is farthest along, I find myself going out to Silicon Valley a lot. And I can tell you, among the great tech companies that I've gotten to hang around with, the credentialism is becoming something like a bad word, a dirty word, or kind of a bad joke, or really yesterday's news. And when they try to assess talent, and they have vicious competition for talent, where you went to school and what your GPA was, that is rapidly receding in the rearview mirror, and they're developing very clever ways to actually assess the skills. As a result, I'm kind of surprised when I go look around these companies, because I think I'm going to run across a bunch of Ivy League, folk like me, and instead I see people from a much, much wider variety of educational backgrounds, and I say, let's have more of that.
Duane.
So there was a question about who went to college. I did not go to college. Mm. The first time I spent considerable time in college was when I started teaching at a university. Thank you. Now, if I would have been able to go to college, I would have went. But college wasn't in my future because I was not financially able to go to college, which is the reason why everything that we do is free. Because I don't want other kids like me to get bypassed if they don't have that motivation and opportunity to have that education experience.
So I'd gone to college as well. What's interesting to note, the median outcome in higher education today is no degree in debt.
Yep.
So that's the median outcome for higher education today. It's just to kind of say factually that's correct. So what it is I think the President's absolutely right. Every single human being is going to need post-secondary education, higher education. Everyone, if we somehow think we need it, we're kidding ourselves. The question is, how's it going to manifest itself? How will people have access to it? How, Lord help us, will people get appropriate and fair preparation to compete in the labor market that isn't vetted out by your bank balance or other factors, right, to allow people to prepare to compete in the labor market that's going to get harder rather than easier and require more rather than less skill and competency. And I'd say to you, I'd really say to you that two things I'd say is go to bed tonight and think really big, right? Before you go to sleep, think big.
It's free.
And then get up.
Yeah, it's free. That's good. Excellent.
It doesn't cost. Right. Get up in the morning and think way bigger, right? Because the great movements in this world have been started by young people, right? Mahatma Gandhi was 26 when he went into South Africa to desegregate South Africa. Gandhi was 26 when he went in. Martin Luther King was in his 20s when he led a great civil rights movement. Young people have the idealism and the vision and the passion to start big things, to think big, to not be jaded. So you're in CGI U, right? You have that courage to take on, to think big, and to realize, factually correct, you are the ones that will start to change this world in the way we need it to be changed so that we pass on to your and our children a better society. And it's kind of inspiring to see you here today because it gives me great faith that we are in good hands, right? And we can move forward more productively.
So let me tell you, as an educator, and I spend my life in higher education, I can tell you, if you ask what is the value of higher education, the value of higher education is first to change the world because with our discoveries, our research, we're changing the world. The second aspect is when all the criticism that you hear is criticism about the applications of the mission when it comes to learning. We have essentially two missions. One is to change the world by our discoveries. And the second is to change human lives, to allow them to have opportunities and to think big, to go back to what my colleague said. Now, what has happened that over the years, we created a big dichotomy between learning to live and learning to earn a living. That's the question about, for instance, is it bad to be vocational? Is it bad to be applied? Is it bad to do applied research even versus fundamental research? This cannot be sustained. Why? Because society is saying, you in higher education, your value is to provide solutions and to provide opportunities. The solutions are coming through the discoveries, and the opportunities are you, each one of you. Now, what has happened is that we became too enamored of certain measures of the SATs or the rejection, the exclusion, etc. And this is now going to change because what my colleagues said to you, we are shifting from an input measure assessment to an output assessment. So when you go to college, you apply and you're filtered out based on your SAT scores, your grades, or whatever. But when you come out of college, people don't know what you have. That's why they don't know what you know. They don't know what you are capable of. And this is going to change. We're moving to also people, society, employers, talent, recruiters are looking for the output measures. And that is a change that is happening. It's slow. Higher education, keep in mind, is very conservative because we want to change the world, but we don't want to change ourselves. So it's good that we raise questions about all this. We didn't answer the question about Afghanistan and the medical. What has happened is that the issue is global. Namely, people who have a competence in one country and want to move to another country, the other country is saying start from scratch. Well, those are, if you want, protectionist measures that are put in place. How can you solve it? By moving to a competency-based approach. What's a competency-based approach? Is to say, we don't care how you acquired your knowledge and your competence. What we need to do is test your competence. If you have it, even if you have been swimming and you acquired it, that's what counts. So stay tuned, because you are in the middle of an enormous change and you will be leading it. Right. Before we close, we have 1 minute for each panelist to leave us with another inspiring idea. So Duane.
Whoa, really?
Yeah.
Often I get asked the question is, what advice do I have for aspiring designers in general, right? And I tell them to be the inspiration that you hope that you're seeking, right? So be the inspiration that you're seeking. And if you focus on being the inspiration that you seek, then you're doing something right along the way in your career or in your journey through your creative process or just in life in general. Because primarily we learn from each other a lot more than sometimes you learn from an instructor or from a school. Like we feed off of, at least creatively, I feed off of you. I feed off of the people. That's why the robot can't completely do it. Because we feed off each other. But the problem, though, is that we don't give as much as we should. So you as people and creative thinkers or just thinkers in general, like give what you hope to receive?
This one's easy. Seek the company of those who search for truth. Run from those who have found it.
I would say that it takes so many years sometimes to develop a belief in yourself. And it's a journey that sometimes be a difficult one. I would say as soon as you can, as much as you can, truly listen to that voice inside of yourself and actually believe and trust in the voice that you have. Believe more often than not, you're going to be right rather than wrong. And don't do what I did, which is say, boy, that journey took a lot of years before you actually had the self-confidence. You have it today. You deserve it today. And I think having that today is going to allow you to make the change you want to happen that much quicker because you're already an incredibly select group of leaders.
Absolutely.
And so I'd say believe in yourself as much as you can today and go with that view as you embark out in your careers.
So quickly, I'm going to ask you to indulge me. I was born in Lebanon, studied there till my master's, then went to France, studied there for an advanced degree, wanted to do my PhD there, came to the United States, did my PhD here. So I looked at 3 university systems and lived them, and worked in 3 continents. I can tell you that the most important aspect of any education system for me is whether it allows you to be yourself and to be also not to have an authority argument. Let me explain what I mean. When I started, I was told, you write it this way because this is what the experts say. When I came here to the United States, the first question is, what is it that you want to say and how can you prove it? What is your contribution? We don't know, we don't care about knowledge that you memorize. We care about your contributions. And you are here here with the CGI U, not because you are smart, that's a given. Not because you know a lot. Any machine can know more than you, but because you are making an impact. And in order to make an impact, you have to be creative. So my only point, be creative and don't worry about the rest. Don't worry about skills. Don't worry about degrees, because everything else will follow. That's what we are all saying. Thank you very much for being with us.